Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fin Factor. I'm Paul.
And I'm Aaron.
And this is a live show, but it will serve as episode number 87. Aaron, is there anyone who's worn 87 for the Sharks?
No.
Nobody.
We got nobody.
Big fat goose egg for 87.
Yep, nothing.
Well, all right then. So again, we are live. So if you've got some comments or questions, Aaron's got the laptop out. He's ready to take all those comments and questions. We don't necessarily have the answers to them, but we're happy to listen. So you've got that going for yourself right there. Aaron, anything you want to say right off the hop here, or are we just going to start jumping into topics? What do you want to do?
Well, it's finally hot here in San Jose. I don't know how many people we have outside of the area, but this week's been pretty warm. So it's nice to have a pool, which I'm fortunate to have at my house.
Okay.
I've been enjoying it. So I'm going to get darker and darker as these shows go on because I'm spending a lot of time outside. It's fantastic. How about you?
Nice. Yeah, no, when in doubt, talk about the weather. No, I'm definitely stuck inside for the most part. Still trying to be the teacher that I am not. It's not working out very well for me. So I'm happy to get back to doing this and seeing everybody that we haven't seen in such a long time. Folks, again, feel free to put all of your comments, questions inside the little text box down below there, and we will get to it as soon as we possibly can. But let's start off. We're going to talk a little bit about why don't we talk about the signings that we had here. Let's what's his name now? We've got Alexei Melnichuk, right?
Yep.
Goaltender from the KHL from Russia. So he's a young guy. He's posted really good numbers in his respective league. This is somebody that they're maybe hoping will take the reins at some point. Now, you brought up an interesting point we had talked about on Twitter, at least, where this is a great opportunity for a young Russian goaltender to step in and get coached by one of the greats, one of the heroes of that country, or that nation, really, and Evgeny Nabokov. So really a good opportunity for him. But as you had said, Nabokov's coaching for the Sharks right now.
Right. And I don't know if you saw Kevin Kurz's article. I think it came out today about fixing ways to fix the Sharks. And one of them was about Bob Boughner. Bob Boughner didn't get to choose his assistant coaches. So not that I'm saying Nabokov won't be the goalie coach in the NHL. I'm sure he's probably one, if not the only one that's going to stay up there. But if Melnichuk?
Melnichuk.
These names are going to kill me. Melnichuk, he's not going to be coached by Nabby. I mean, maybe a little bit because at least the Barracuda's in San Jose now, so he'll most likely be on the Barracuda. But his day-to-day stuff, I don't think he'll be getting, so much treatment from Nabokov. So don't get too excited about this guy. I mean, get excited about him. It's awesome signing, but he's not going to be jumping up into the NHL right away. He's definitely going to need some seasoning in the AHL. He is only 21. He might have just turned 22. He's right around there. I mean, goalies, I would say, normally break into the NHL about 25. He has not played the North American game, which is a different ice surface than the KHL. So it's a different kind of game, different kind of speed, different kind of everything. So he probably will be NHL bound. What's great about this is did you see that there were other teams that were trying to sign him?
Yeah.
So yeah, the rumor was, or from Rush reports, was that he narrowed his list down to the Avalanche, the Golden Knights, the Sharks, and the Hurricanes. And it's great that he picked the Sharks. The Avalanche, they had actually written about him on here. I'll share this screen with you real quick. They wrote about him on one of their kind of like their Fear the Fin, I think it is their version of Fear the Fin. Let's see here. This is what website is this? Mile High Hockey. So this is where I got that thing where they're talking about it. But they brought an interesting point here. Francois, he came over from the KHL, but he came over at 27. He was much older, and he is a very good goalie. And they were excited. This would have really, made their pipeline a lot stronger for the Avalanche. But now this just helps the Sharks indefinitely. So Zach Croft asked this question in here, I think. He said, do you see Aaron Dell moving on as a free agent? I think so. I think this is going to be more of a cap issue. The cap is probably not going to go up. In fact, it might even go down next year. So they're going to have to start saving money in certain places. Aaron Dell, I think they could sign a different goalie for either the same or even less than what Aaron Dell would command on the free agency market or what he would command to stay with the Sharks. So I think he's going to be gone And I think they're going to try and bring in somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Dell returning, I could definitely see him being replaceable. Absolutely. At the same time, I don't know he's going to command that much, to be honest with you. The guy didn't have that great of a season. Now, when he stepped in, he played pretty well, but it's a flash in the pan. So, I mean, his numbers for the majority of the season and the even previous season, not so hot. So, I don't think he's going to be a guy that's outside of the Sharks, cap reach, if you will. But hey, it'd be good to make some changes. Obviously, Martin Jones not going anywhere right now, at least not via a trade or anything, probably, I would think. I mean, the one way you could definitely see Martin Jones exiting is if they give a compliance buyout. Now, you just talked about the cap potentially going down. There would be teams that might be over the cap simply by the fact that the cap goes down, right? So in a way for them to try to alleviate pressure on the cap would be to say, well, we're going to give you a compliance buyout. There's no penalty for using this buyout, and you can buy out any one player on your team that you want. And in that case, you could definitely see maybe that being used on Martin Jones, freeing up that cap space and going out and getting a different goaltender. Maybe we talked about Robin Lehner, for instance, right? So I could definitely see something like that happening. But as of right now, it sounds like Martin Jones is still going to be your number one. Dell, again, he might be not be out of reach, I should say, but I don't know that they're going to bring him back. I could definitely see an AHL guy stepping in, playing some backup minutes, and letting Martin Jones just take the reins again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces, I think, this offseason, whenever that ends up being. Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But there's a couple questions in here about what's the offseason going to look like. So
we don't know. We don't even know when the offseason is. I mean, right now it's offseason, right? So, one thing that we do know about the offseason is that the Sharks are, making signings and whatnot, and this goaltender being one of them. The other signing that they made, though, was, I don't know, he was a centerman. He's actually the best centerman in the SHL, I believe. Some ridiculous. Let me check the stats here. 61.5% in the faceoff dot. Now, some can be said that, they're not NHL caliber players. Okay, cool. But I think when it comes to faceoffs, you don't have to be necessarily an NHL caliber player. You just have to know how to beat that guy to the puck when it comes to moving your stick, and the strategy that goes into, backhand, forehand, and lifting and everything else. So this guy seems to have a pretty good grasp on that. It'd be interesting to see what he can do. Now, I know that you had said he sounds like he might be a replacement for like a Barclay Goodrow on the PK. I could definitely see him being just a really good face-off specialist. If that means he plays in the PK, then okay, great. Maybe he wins the draw, they dump it down, he gets off the ice. Who knows? But this is somebody who, looks like maybe could step into that role and play a good part for the Sharks. And we noticed, actually, as the season went on, that the Sharks face-off percentage took a bit of a hit. And in some of those games, we saw that they did not win very many face-offs, unfortunately. So maybe this is a signing that really does help out. And, we'll see how it goes. He probably starts in the AHL, but a guy that it sounds like he could be a pretty good prospect, albeit he's 26 years old.
Right. I think he's kind of a Goodrow replacement, where kind of like a guy where he has some skill. He's the captain of his team. He led the SHL. The entire league he led in faceoffs taken and faceoff percentage. Usually when you have faceoffs, when you're leading faceoffs taken, you're not leading the actual percentage too, because you've taken so many more than everyone else. But 61.5% is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, these are not NHL caliber players. Probably more comparable to a mix of AHL and NHL would be my guess for the SHL. But still, he was the captain of the team, so he's got very good leadership qualities. He's Swedish, so we talked about this when Carlson was brought on. I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a hotbed of Swedish players coming in over now because of Carlson. That's kind of the Carlson effect in a way. And there's nothing wrong with Sweden. The Sweden national team, look at the players; they're very good. They produce very quality players. So I'm not too angry about it. I think it's fantastic that we have kind of a pipeline coming in now. Yeah. I can see him. He's 6'4", 209 pounds. He's a big guy, and the Sharks don't really have that many bigger, younger players. They're all kind of smaller now. So another guy that was kind of sought after from other teams. So it's good that the Sharks are being competitive. I really think the Carlson advantage helped here in bringing him on. And I could see him being maybe the fourth line center that we need, who's a defensive specialist for PK, and maybe not right off the bat, but I bet he's going to compete during the training camp, if there is a training camp, whatever that is.
Sure, could definitely see that. Yeah, like you said, 6'4", 209. I mean, this is a big dude. So I'm really happy to see somebody of that size, right? Not just the height, but he's got the chunk behind him, right? The reason I was laughing earlier with the whole Swedish comment was actually I was thinking back to Douglas Murray when we talked to him in the interview with the Three Dougs, and he had said that you need more Swedish people to win the cup. That's what it is. So I guess that's what they're doing. They're stocking up. Any other comments or questions that we've got down there regarding these guys, the signings, or do we want to move on to some of the draft talk?
Lots of questions here. There's a lot. I mean, it's not just related to this, but
okay.
One was from Isaiah saying, how does Wilson approach the offseason? He's got a lot of questions. Did the Sharks pick up a coach to help out Bugner in the offseason? That was one of the things that Kurz brought up, was possibly bringing in an NHL caliber assistant coach. So if things go south with Bugner, they can do what they did with not with Bugner, but replace Bugner or replace. Thank you.
What we do with the board, yeah.
Bugner. Right. Andres Madrigal said, thank you for doing a live stream. I hope you guys are doing well. Go Sharks. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Big fan. He's been around a lot. And Isaiah also asked, won't Melnichuk have to be coached by Nabokov due to the language issues? I don't think he has to. I'm sure the Sharks could provide a translator. I'm sure Nabokov will help him out. He's probably going to help coach when he can, when he's not working with the NHL goalies.
Remember when we had Dan Ruzanowski on the show, and he was talking about, was it Urbe? Who was it? The goalie that it was Urbe. Yeah. Go ahead and tell that story because it's not fresh in my head. Do you remember it?
Urbe kind of, when he first came into the league or was on the Sharks, he kind of pretended that he didn't know English as well as he did. And he threw out a phrase. I can't remember what the phrase was now. Do you?
It's better to be a pauper in a rich man's house than I forget. It was some famous quote like that. And the guy goes, well, we have to figure out, we talked to him about how much English the guy knows. Sorry, I botched the whole thing there. But yeah, no, basically, he pretended he didn't know a whole lot of English. So maybe this guy can get by without actually knowing any English. Who knows? It's really the position and your angles and scoring up. And as long as you're talking hockey, as opposed to, English versus another language, I think as long as you're relating it to the game, I think they'll understand. So, especially if this guy's been sought after and whatnot, they'll make it work. So I'm not too worried about that. But I think definitely it's a good opportunity for him if he's able to work with Nabokov at any point, just because, Nabokov is such a big influence over there, I'm sure.
Yep. One of the questions was, would you like to see Tom? This is from Matt Sider. Would you guys like to see Thomas Greiss back as a backup? This is what Kevin Kurz had in his article today, was bringing on someone like Greiss. I like Greiss. I also like Leonard. I think those two guys could be a 1A, 1B situation with Martin Jones. And then, because if Martin Jones falters like he did, those guys are solid starters. They could be a solid starter. I think a split kind of 1A, 1B type thing would benefit both Jones and give him some rest. And Greiss and Leonard, I think, thrive in those kinds of roles they have in their career.
Yeah, I think Leonard is ready to step into a number one role, honestly. Greiss, he was, I'm thinking of Stalock too, because I get him flipped back to back.
Yeah, they were kind of there at the same time.
Yeah. But I think Greiss was ever since he left, really, he's been really solid for what he is.
Well,
I could be wrong, but
he was playing for the New York Islanders under Barry Trotz, which is a total system. This is the team that I said if Martin Jones played for the Islanders, he would, not that he would challenge for the Vezina, but he would be up there in the standings for stats.
Imagine that. You play with a team that knows how to play defense, your stats go up.
Yeah, but they only play defense, and they barely make playoffs.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Anyway, so let's go ahead. You want to talk a little bit about the whole drafting, because they're talking about doing this draft in June and then completing the season after the fact. Now, my whole stance on this is, how can you possibly do that? Because part of the big thing that goes on at draft weekend is, the trades and whatnot. Now, it's not just trading one draft pick for two draft picks and moving up or moving down or whatever the case is. You also got to move guys that are active roster players, right? So guys that have more than a year left, and you're moving them to another team to get a prospect or a higher draft position, something to that effect. Doing the draft before you're done with the season, I don't understand how that would work and still allow for those things to happen. You can't trade a player to another team for next season, allow him to continue playing on the team you're playing on now. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. I can't imagine how they would go about doing that. So for me, I don't think that a June draft is ideal. I don't think it makes any sense. I think they should do the draft after the season is done. Now, normally you would do the draft right before the free agency, right? Or the whole signing period and whatnot. But that's essentially in June. But I think this time around, with it not being after, that's the difference. It's not being after the season is done. So that's why I have a problem with that. I think they need to finish the season and then do the draft. Now, I heard, I think it was Bob McKenzie or somebody was saying, do it for the kids. These guys have been sitting around waiting to have their names called for so long. We should let them get drafted and they know which team they're supposed to go to. And I'm going, again, desperate times don't necessarily call for these desperate measures. It's totally understandable that they should have to wait until the season's done, and then teams can make their trades if they need to, or make their picks if they need to, where they feel that they need to fill holes. And a lot of times you don't know where your holes are until you've gone through playoffs or after the trade deadline and realize, you know what, we needed this one little piece. That's the one thing that would have pushed us over the top. I'm going to go get that. So they wouldn't have the opportunity to do that either. So I don't know. I just don't think, I know it's a really weird time and there's lots of unprecedented things going on, but I think you stick to doing the draft after the season is done.
Right. Yeah. I think all your points you just made are pretty much all the points that the GMs are making, the current GMs of all the teams are making.
Okay.
For me, I think the biggest hurdle is the trades of current players. You just wouldn't be able to do it, which that would mean it's just a pure draft. You probably wouldn't see very many trades other than pick for pick or prospect. Even you couldn't even really trade a prospect because you can bring those prospects up for the playoffs. Yeah. So I would have a feeling that there would be no player trades in this draft, which is kind of, for me, it's a lot of the fun, I think. You can see teams moving up in the draft, like, for instance, the Sharks. If they were to trade away some pieces, some players, and get some picks in the current draft while the draft's going on. So I think what is going to happen, so the original draft was June 27th in Montreal, 27th and 28th. They canceled it because of the pandemic. So they're going to be doing what the NFL did and do an online draft, which I think worked out great. Everyone's used to it at this point. They're going to want, so the other issue or the other kind of argument of doing it is it's going to be great for ratings. Right. Everything is going to be online. Everything's going to, you can put it on TV, but I mean, all the drafting is going to be online, and everyone is starving for any sort of sporting content to get their minds off of the rest of their lives right now. Right. So, I mean, how many of you people are on here talking about Sharks hockey when there's no Sharks hockey because you just need like a break, a mental break from everything. So any kind of sporting news is going to do very well. You're going to pull in a lot of people that don't normally watch NHL or even care just because it's something on. So that's a big part of it, and they need the ratings and they need the money. So it's a big deal for the NHL to do this. Now, I think they're going to try and schedule it and nail it down in June, and then eventually by the end of this month, or maybe into very early June, they're going to announce that the season's over and they're not going to play the playoffs. I still think that that's most likely what's going to happen. I just don't see how they can play, let alone the end of the regular season. I think the regular season for sure is done, but to get the playoffs going without having any warm-up games, without players even being able to report to their training facilities, still, we're in May and they still haven't been able to go to them yet. That's a big deal. And so the players are going to be out of shape. That's going to be susceptible to more injuries to them. Now, whenever you see players getting groin injuries, that's not all the time, but most of the time means they're out of shape. That's what that means. So whenever you see a player pulling their groin, it's because they're out of shape. Unless they tear it, that's different. Like, I think Carlson he didn't tear his groin. He tore something else. But
you trying to defend him right now?
I always defend him. He's fantastic. Anyway, it's probably going to get me some flack. But
oh, yeah. Comments down below.
But whatever, I think, to me, the draft is going to happen in June. I think the season's going to be canceled, and including the playoffs. I don't see. To me, they're going to want to focus on. I think it would be more important to finish or to start next season relatively on time than it is to do the Stanley Cup. I think just like 1919 during the Stanley Cup Finals during that pandemic, they had to cancel it, and that was after Game 6, and they had ties, by the way. After 2 overtimes, they finished the game in a tie. So it was 2. What was it? I think the series was 2-2-1 going into Game 6 or something like that. So nobody had the lead.
Wow.
I don't know, something. So anyway,
crazy.
Counterpoint though, I think if they were to do the draft, no trades, and they do the playoffs, I think it would be beneficial for those players that get drafted to be in the locker room, not playing, but to be in the atmosphere of an NHL team that's in the playoffs and getting to see a behind the scenes look, or just the press box, just being around, kind of like during training camp, when they scratch players because they have so many players and they're just there. Like they know they're not going to make the team, but they need to be around all those NHL players to see what it takes to be there. And especially in the playoffs, it even gets magnified. So I think it could be a plus, and I think it could happen if they were to play the season. But I'm still in the boat that they're just not going to do it. They're just not going to finish the season.
Yeah, I think the season's done too. I think that's some foresight by you, and I think some other teams have kind of picked up on that. We talked a little bit about earlier before we jump on the show here. The Toronto Maple Leafs had already started giving, other teams as well have already started giving the season ticket holders the option to just kind of cancel out, giving refunds and whatnot. And it seems like, not that they're sure about it, but maybe they're kind of anticipating that just a little bit. So yeah, again, for me, I don't see it happening. One of the other problems I think with the draft is, when you talk about conditional picks, if the certain team does however well in the playoffs, or if this player resigns, then it changes their draft position and whatnot. So how would you do that? I think they had said one of the solutions was to allow the teams to kind of redo their trade and talk about it and figure out what works best. And if not, have like an arbitrator kind of come in. I don't think anybody wants that gigantic mess. Again, for me, I think the season just ends, and I think that they go ahead and do the draft in June, but that's not with the season ending, essentially. Not with the season ending with the Stanley Cup finalist. Basically, just the season getting cut short. They do the draft whenever they would normally do the draft, fine. Even if it's, electronically, essentially, I have no problem with that. But those types of things have to be open and available for the teams in terms of, where they would have ended up. They can cut that right now with the regular season, say, you know what, it's weird times. We're sorry that it doesn't match up with your conditional pick in terms of where you ended up in the playoffs, but we'll just transfer that to where you ended up in the regular season, and that's where you get picked. So again, really weird things going on with the whole draft thing, and hopefully we'll have some expert on to talk about this stuff in the coming weeks. We don't know. But any other comments in this comment section there about the draft or anything that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, there's a few in there that are kind of funny. Just
fire them, dude.
NHL. This is from Anthony Sanchez. NHL will be sending an apology letter to all the playoff-bound teams. Zach Cross said, this isn't about the draft, but he said that he heard it's going to be a 24-team tournament, but it's from a dumb source.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Sharks still wouldn't even be a part of that 24-team playoff, by the way. And that's because of the last couple games. They lost a few, and Anaheim and LA jumped over them. They were up there. Mm-hmm. Anthony also said earlier, how about the NHL allows all the teams to keep their original first-round picks? That's probably not happening. I think the way they're just going to do conditional picks is tough luck. Just pretend that team didn't win the cup, and whatever the conditions were already set for that, that's what it is. Because we had a conditional pick with Pittsburgh. If Pittsburgh won the cup with Marlowe, what was it, that third round turns into a second round or something?
Something like that.
Just pretend they didn't win because nobody won.
No pretending. Nobody wins.
That's what I mean.
That completes everybody's or satisfies all the requirements for everybody that had that in their trade, right? So nobody won. So that you go with that one. To me, that makes more sense. Honestly, I think they just do it that way. But who knows? Any other comments you want to pick on?
There's a whole bunch, but not about the draft. So what else you want to talk about?
I was going to say, let me take my little notebook here. And so you said the Penguins have an interesting goalie conundrum.
They do. They are both RFAs. They have Matt Murray and Tristan Jarry, who I believe was on waivers in the beginning of the season.
And then he turned it on.
Yeah, Casey DeSmith, I believe, was him and Murray were running the show in the beginning, and then DeSmith got sent down, and Jarry got pulled up. So, and then he just ran with it. So, so it's interesting. That puts them in a bind, especially if the salary cap either stays flat or goes down. They're going to, not that they would trade one of their goalies. Don't get too excited, everyone. I mean, they could, but most likely they would probably trade a different piece. And so last year, before Phil Kessel got traded, there was a bunch of rumors going around that Malkin was going to get traded. And then it came out after Kessel was traded that Malkin is the one that told management to get him out of here, get Kessel out of here. Otherwise, you're going to trade me, or I'm going to ask her for a trade or whatever.
Wow.
And that was because he was saying that Phil Kessel, basically he won 2 cups and his motivation is not there to win a cup anymore. He's all about his own stats. So he's just a selfish player and doesn't care about winning. And he didn't want to be on him, which is why he took him off of his line and didn't want him playing on his line anymore. And then he eventually said, get him out of here because he's just not good for the locker room, that kind of stuff. So for a while, I think it was the owner came out. It was the owner of the GM. I think it was the owner of the Penguins came out and said, or maybe it was, is the owner still Mario? I don't know. It wasn't Lemieux. But anyway,
we don't know.
They said the only untouchable person is Crosby, which is kind of a shot at Malkin. And then so much so, Crosby never says anything. He came out and said he meant Crosby and Malkin. Crosby said that.
Really?
Yeah, Crosby came out and said that, which is rare for him to even speak up about anything about those kinds of issues. So
now let's remind everybody who's maybe a fan of the show, maybe doesn't watch all of our live content, which of our viewers is the one that constantly gets a shoe thrown at him?
Can't remember if that was Anthony or not.
Is it Anthony Sanchez? I think so.
I don't remember. Was it?
I'm pretty sure it's Anthony Sanchez. Now, why do I bring that up, Aaron? Do you know?
Because I was saying to Paul offline before all this when we we're discussing this that
no. Sorry, hold on. Read it down here for the podcast. Read what it says down here.
Oh. Hi guys, please don't talk about anything trading birds. My wife will fling her flip flops at me if you do.
Do you cover up?
Maybe she should leave the room or cover her ears. Earmuffs.
Basically, what Aaron's about to say is, wouldn't it make a whole lot of sense potentially to unload a Brent Burns, who is a redundancy on the blue line, and get a guy like Evgeny Malkin, who's got 2 years left on his contract. He's 33, I think. I'm sorry, Anthony, you already said it. He's 33. I mean, it could make a lot of sense to add that, big number 1, number 2 type center, who can play and not have Joe Thornton have to step in and be the number 2 or the number 1 if we have injuries and whatnot. So we've got a couple guys that can play in the number 1, number 2 center spot. But if you added an Evgeny Malkin to that, you can certainly push one of those guys off on the right wing, and you don't really lose all your offensive power from the blue line. You still got Erik Karlsson back there. So this is kind of one of the things we were talking about when we were talking about how we can make the Sharks better by subtracting Burns. Not because he's a bad player, but because there's a redundancy. And what do we need? We need like a really good top 6 forward. Wouldn't it be funny if the Sharks were able to do some sort of trade where we satisfy that requirement, but then also add a little piece in to maybe pick up like a Tristan Jarry or a Matt, well, not a little piece, but like a Matt Murray, somebody like that we can add into the goaltending situation. I think that could solve a lot of problems in one move with one team. And we've done lots of deals with Pittsburgh in the past. So, you guys did it again. I know. I'm sorry, man, but it's just, it is what it is, right? It's the show. We got to talk about something.
She's not going to watch the show now.
No, I'm just saying again, these are pieces that maybe make sense for the betterment of the team. I love Brent Burns. Aaron loves Brent Burns. Your wife loves Brent Burns, maybe more than you at this point. Who knows? All I'm saying is for the team, from a business standpoint, it certainly does make sense. And we would be sad to see Brent Burns go, but man, the possibilities for this team by adding other pieces that we need, I don't know. I think it kind of outweighs it. So what do you think, Aaron?
I mean, Brent Burns is still a good player. His salary is actually cheaper than Malkin's. Malkin has 2 years left after this season. Burns has another, I think, 5. So Burns is a little cheaper for Pittsburgh. They already have Letang, who's a right-handed shot defenseman, but he gets hurt a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if Letang possibly even got moved out of Pittsburgh.
And that's one of the things I was saying too, is, they already have Letang, so maybe it doesn't make sense. But then I'm like, well, we did it, right? So and we did it with better defensemen, in my opinion. So better offensive threats, I should say. Yeah, rest in peace,
he gets hurt more than Karlsson does. So that says a lot. So Burns would be able to take over the number 1.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Noah over here doing the whole eulogy for Anthony Sanchez. Thank you, Noah, for taking the reins on that one. I hope you got the Bible out. Yeah. So, any other comments related to that other than Anthony's going to lose his life in the next week or so?
Zach Croft asks, is there a scenario where you can see Vlasic being traded? Now, that's another thing Kerr's brought up with one of Burns or Vlasic needs to get moved in order to free up some space and all that. Vlasic has always been linked ever since he got drafted to Montreal because he's French-Canadian. He's probably the best defensive defenseman still in this game. And Montreal loves French-Canadians so much so that they would probably overpay for him. So Vlasic has a no trade clause, no movement clause, I believe. So he could just veto anything, but he might. I don't know if he wants to go back. He said early in his career that he didn't want to play there because they're awful to the players and the media. So maybe he's changed his tune now that he's older. Who knows? But it also depends on what, to me, I don't think anybody is, not that they're not safe, but I don't think anyone is untradeable. Even Doug Wilson has said as much about the no movement clauses as people keep kind of hounding him, like for giving him out. And he goes, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. Something always gets worked out. I mean, if you're the GM and you go to the player, it's actually happened where Marlowe nixed a trade back in 2012, I think it was, maybe earlier. So it does happen, but most likely the player's gonna be like, okay, they don't want me here. This other team's really excited to get me.
Yeah.
It'll help out the Sharks. It'll be time. It's time for me to move on and kind of try a new challenge or go into a new city that's more exciting than San Jose is. Not that San Jose is terrible, but it's not, flashy Miami or New York or something.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, just in your normal job, whatever that job may be for everybody who's listening there, is if you had some ability to say, you can't fire me, right? But your boss comes to you and says, we'd like to basically unload you and we can certainly get you a new job with another company. They'd be really excited to have you. You'd be doing them a big favor. You'd be doing us a big favor. I mean, if you got that from your boss, would you kind of feel like, well, I'm not really wanted here, and it sounds like they're setting me up with a really good opportunity? The only problem is if they're sending you to Montreal, obviously from San Jose, you have to pick up your life and move. But such is the life of an NHL player. But you can imagine in that scenario where you might say to yourself, yeah, you know what, I wouldn't mind making a move here. And, who knows, they might treat me a little bit better. They might appreciate me better over there. And if the working conditions are better, if you'd say that, whatever you want to say to kind of make it relatable, you could understand why a player might say, you know what, it's okay with the whole no move clause. I'll go ahead and waive that and just let's move me. But let's make sure that I'm being moved to a place that I want to get moved to. I can imagine Vlasic wouldn't mind living out in Montreal with the whole French-Canadian connection, but like you said, with the management and whatnot, if they're no good, he might not really want to do that, especially because he's got his whole life here already. He's lived here, for the entirety of his NHL career, which has been substantial. So to pick up your life and move at this point in your career would be pretty tough, especially if it means you have to move or waive your no move clause. If the team just doesn't want to re-sign you, okay, you see that coming, but if you've got that no move clause and all of a sudden they're coming to you saying that they want to trade you, that's got to be a little, uprooting, I guess, I
mean, as a defensive defenseman, as Vlasic is, I think it would be appealing to go to Montreal and play with still, I think, one of the best goalies in the league, with Carey Price being there.
That's true.
So, there's pluses and minuses to going there. It's not just all about the media.
Yeah.
So
personally, I'd rather see them keep Vlasic and keep him alongside of Erik Karlsson. That tandem seemed to be working out okay as the year was going on. They seem to look a little bit better, and it's unfortunate that Dilly's gone. But I think the next best defensive threat you have, not the next best, but really the only other defensive threat that you have, if it's from a purely stick and positioning standpoint, is Marco-Rene Vlasic. Shimmick's up and coming. He's more of the bruiser type, but he makes good reads according to Brent Burns and whatnot. We've seen him play really well when he's healthy. So, some exciting guys coming through the pipeline. Can't wait to see them kind of grow. But I think between the two of them, I think Brent Burns is the more movable asset. I think he's flashier too, right? People know Brent Burns a lot more than they know Marco-Rene Vlasic. That's why you see in the All-Star games, you see Brent Burns and you don't see Marco-Rene Vlasic, right? So
yeah, Burns won the Vezina, so he's nationally known, internationally known. Yeah. There's an interesting comment in here about Burns getting traded from Left-Handed Lions, saying Burns to Winnipeg for Ehlers or to Nashville for Kyle Turris are trades that are more likely. I don't think Kyle Turris is going to happen. I don't like Kyle Turris that much. I think he's kind of a guy he was drafted very high, I think by Arizona way back in the day. Bounced around a few times.
Yeah, I think so.
To me, he's peaked where he's at. Ehlers, I like Ehlers a lot better. I like his game a lot better. He reminds me of like Donskoy a little bit. He's a little puck possession playmaker, but can score, but obviously better than Donskoy was. So that would be actually a pretty intriguing piece there. You know, it would be interesting. What if we did that trade and then we signed Bufflin on the blue line?
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
I would love to see. I wouldn't mind seeing Buff come back. It's not even necessarily with the Sharks. I just would like to see the guy come back. I think he's probably done, but I wouldn't mind seeing him get another shot in the league. You miss seeing those big hits. You haven't seen hits that big since the Cronwalls and Douglas Murrays. I mean, there's some big hits coming out of that guy, and it'd be great to see him back in the league.
Yeah.
So let's move on to some other comments. But before we do, let's just remind everybody that we are wearing the official Fin Factor teal and gray shirts. Here, let's go ahead and sort up just a little bit. There we go. So yeah, those ones are available at thefinfactor.com. And you can hit those three little lines in the upper corner, hit that, and it says, support the show, because that is what you're doing. You're helping us keep the lights on. I have a new desk lamp over here that is helping my face not look red today, according to super producer Jason. So again, anything you purchase does help go right back into the show.
You guys did not help purchase a lamp, by the way.
No, yeah, we didn't help purchase the lamp for me.
Lundy, though. Lundy says hello and also gave us $1.99 and said, hey, guys, long time no see.
Love it, Lundy. Thank you so much for that. Do appreciate it. Keep throwing those $2 or actually save those $2 every time. Buy yourself a nice hat as well. So
Scott Camp wants to know if your shirt comes in men's size.
Oh, ouch. Yeah, that's a callback to Letterkenny. I'm not going to finish it, but that's a callback to Letterkenny. I know what you're doing there, Scott. Anyway, yes, they do. They come in men's. They come in women's. Actually, the women's deep V cut. It's all black. Looks very nice. So if you want to get your lady something looking like it's going to help turn you on at night, then that's the one you want. So anyway, so feel free to check out the store. I know it's gross.
Also for our women, it's also for our women fans that we have of the show, if they would like a women cut instead of a sex cut.
Which is weird because the statistics say we have a 100% male audience, which is totally wrong. I know we have a lot of women out there that enjoy the show. Who knows? Anyway, so we'll go ahead and get back to those comments, questions. Go ahead, fire away.
There's a lot of Merkley talk here now. Merkley, I think next year he's going to be, I think he's turning 20 this year. Mm-hmm. So he'll be eligible to play in the AHL, which I think he will do. I think they're going to want him close and at the Barracuda, and they're definitely going to want to see like probably at least a full season there, unless there's some injuries or maybe they give him a cup of coffee, just to kind of give him a couple games in the NHL level. I just don't see him playing at the NHL yet. His defensive game has gotten a lot better, but I don't think it's NHL caliber. Granted, this comment was about doing if they traded Burns, like to replace kind of Burns and do that. Murphy would be packaged in a trade. That's definitely possible. And they said no because they invested too much. I don't think they've invested that much into him. I think they would be investing much into him if it's been a couple more years and he's only played a handful of games. Then it's like, oh man, or their time to move on to get a new situation for him. If
he was like 21, 22 and playing in the AHL still, I'm with you on that comment. The fact that he's still young, he just turned 20. No,
he's about to turn 20.
He's about to turn 20. He's only 19.
He got drafted when we actually drafted him. He was 17, just about to turn 18. So he wasn't even 18 yet.
The defense boy.
But think about he was a defense boy. Think about that. I know because my sister had to go through this in college. She was 17 and turned 18 like through her first semester of college. You have to get your parental signature on everything because you're not a legal adult. So every little piece of paper in college, she had to go home and get signed from my parents. So he probably same thing for him. Everything he has to get signed by his parents because it's a legal guardian and all that stuff. So that's just a pain in the butt. So anyway, my point is he's very young. He's very so we drafted him very young. Imagine, usually those kinds of kids, unless they're very elite like he was, they're probably not even going to get drafted that year. They would get drafted the following year. But he's that good that he went in the first round. But still, he was a very raw prospect that they've been trading a lot. I mean, that's a good question we can ask someone later.
Yeah. No, I feel like I think it was Anthony that said it. I think he's on point. I feel like he's going to get moved as a piece in a trade.
I think he could get moved. I don't think he's off limits.
Yeah, no, I think everybody's not off limits, to be honest.
But I don't think they're actively looking to move him.
No, I wouldn't say actively, but I could definitely say, okay, they're interested in a trade and they want this and something else. We could offer up him as that something else part, right? So if they're looking for maybe a pick or a prospect, maybe we say, well, how about this guy instead, right? We'd be happy to move him. Maybe identifying some holes that they have in their roster, who knows? But I could definitely see him being a part of a trade. And honestly, not because of all of the things that people are saying about him, like he's loose cannon and he's got a hot head and everything else. Not for any of those reasons, but just because, again, the guy is good. He's ridiculously good for his age. He's potentially going to be a star in this league. And it's the roll of a dice because you're not really sure what side of him is going to take over, whether it's going to be the kid that, this is what they said when they drafted him. It's kind of a risk. They don't know if he's going to pan out, be what he actually can be. And the kid's ridiculously good, but can he take that step, go to the next level? And I don't think we've seen him at this point. I don't think we can judge if he can or can't take that next step. It's been, a couple of years since we drafted him. Yes, but he hasn't seen any AHL action even yet. So it's hard. Or he has a little bit, yeah. He did a couple games here and there, but he hasn't really seen like the longevity in there. So nobody can really say that this guy can't make it. He's done whatever, So I definitely think that he's still intriguing to other teams, and it's kind of a question mark on whether or not he's going to be the type of player that we think he can, the type of player that we drafted and hoping that he would be. So, it'd be a risk for another team, but I could think he could definitely be a part that brings, something back that we actually do need. Again, we've already got a Brent Burns and we've already got a Erik Karlsson. We've got Mario Ferraro, who's actually pretty offensively talented. Don't forget, we just signed Pashnuk as well. So he's another guy that I thought his two-way game was phenomenal in the prospects game. He played great defensively, and I thought it was a different player when I saw him in the offensive zone. I thought it was an entirely different player, and it's the same guy. He did great job on both ends of the ice. So I think his game could translate really well, especially, to the AHL level. But, maybe he makes that jump and becomes a guy that's a stalwart, but also an offensive threat. So who knows? I think we've got some pretty good defensive prospects in the pipeline right now. Don't even forget about Šimik and these other guys who are stepping in. They're going to be mainstays in this roster. So I think a Ryan Merkley is a guy that's, again, a redundancy. I don't know that we really need a Ryan Merkley. So I could definitely see him, maybe being part of a package.
Well, I'm going to disagree because I think he is the future of our right-handed shot moving defenseman. Burns is going to get either moved or, by the time Merkley's up and he's playing, he's elite at that level of the NHL. Burns is going to be retired and out of the league. So he's going to take over that spot, basically. And then him and Karlsson will be running the show, assuming that Karlsson's even still here. I just don't see them wanting to move him. That's pretty much their number one prospect in their pipeline. Better than anyone else that they have. So yeah, it's a good chip to dangle for future players, but I think the Sharks kind of leverage themselves too much on doing that already, that they don't have much left in the cupboard and they don't want to do full rebuilds. So I think that they're really going to want to hold on to him unless they get something back in return, like maybe some first round picks or something. I just don't see it. But I think we see Merkley play a full season at the Barracuda level this year and hope for good things working on his game, more on his defensive game, because you can't even really make his offensive game better than what it is, honestly. So I think they're just going to focus basically defensively and make him a better defenseman that could play at the NHL level.
Okay, I need a response from you on this then, because we did talk about the prospect of moving a Brent Burns because of redundancies on the blue line. If you think that Ryan Merkley steps in and plays with Karlsson, not alongside as a partner, but right. First and second line offensive threats, do you think that just brings that redundancy back into play? And do you think that causes, again, the same amount of turnovers from offensive defensemen because that's the way they play? Do you think that we're back in the same hole again, essentially?
No, the way I see them is with Carlson's age, and by the time Merkley would hit his peak, Carlson would be taking a back seat. They would basically switch. So Carlson would be number one defenseman, and then Merkley would be on like the second pairing. And then eventually they're going to switch, and they're going to say now Merkley's going to be the number one guy. Carlson's still good enough to play, just not for top minutes. And so he's going to be the second pairing, and then just swap that in a certain year during the year or something. So I think that's why I say he's the future, and why it would still work with both of them. Because at first he's not going to be able to jump in right away, especially as a defenseman. He's not going to be able to jump in right away and be at that level that he would need to be at to be a consistent 22-minute defensive guy, defenseman playing. So, I mean, when he first breaks into the NHL, he's probably going to be third line pairing, second power play time, maybe first power play time, kind of like how LeBanc gets first power play time for a guy that's on the third line. Depends on the situation, what the roster kind of looks like. But, I mean, this kid is good, and you don't want to like hold the reins too tight on him either. You want him to be creative, and that's one of the things Bugner's been preaching, is being more creative and less predictable, which he definitely is. So, I mean, I'm not against it. I mean, I just don't see Merkley playing this upcoming season for the Sharks. I think they're going to want a lot of work on him. He'll probably be the number one guy in the Barracuda. I mean, he'll get the most minutes there, which is better for his development than playing 12 minutes in the NHL level. But yeah,
go ahead.
This year would be not a make or break, but we would know what we have.
Okay.
For him at the AHL level. Like, you get to kind of see what he does against men versus the junior level, which is teenagers.
Some very good insights there by Aaron. If you want to make sure that you get more of those insights, please feel free to hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, as super producer Jason just put on the screen. Any other comments we want to go ahead and tackle? We're only 47 minutes in right now. We usually go for about an hour or so. So if anybody's got some last minute ones they want to throw in there, or how about we do a roll call first?
Let's do a roll call. Tell us where you are watching from, and what is your favorite TV show that you're binging right now? Don't say Tiger King. I'm so sick of that.
No, not Tiger King. What have you been watching?
That's like old news. That's like a month ago now. What have I been watching? We heard the show Waco on Netflix, which I didn't realize was 2 years old now. It was just a brief miniseries about David Koresh and the whole thing that happened in Waco, Texas.
Yep.
I didn't know the details of it. I remember it as a kid. It just kind of some crazy thing, and the whole thing burned down. So
yeah,
we're almost at the end of it, but it's pretty good. I mean, it's dark and it's sad because it's very true what happened, but
right.
It's very well done. I'll say that.
Nice. So I've been watching. I had watched Ozark. That was a phenomenal series, I thought. And then there's one that's actually in Spanish, Money Heist.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's really good. Now I don't speak Spanish, so it's a problem. What we did was we put subtitles on, and then about 3 or 4 episodes in, I was like, I can't read the subtitles anymore. It's ridiculous. So I actually checked, and yes, they have it dubbed over in English. So I've been doing that in English, and it's been a great, phenomenal series. Really good stuff. Highly recommend that. Just make sure that if you don't speak Spanish, you remember to put the dubbing on as well. So how about some of the stuff we got going on there?
How's the dubbing work out for sound effects?
It's great.
Are those
totally
dubbed too?
Yeah, no, everything is good. They did a really good. Apparently, what happened with the show was they did the first 2 seasons and the dubbing was horrendous. Then it got a big following, and the 3rd season they got new voice actors. With the 4th season, they got the same voice actors come back. So what they did was they took seasons 1 and 2 and redubbed them with the voice actors that they got in season or part 3 and part 4. So it's consistent all the way through. But I mean, honestly, I can't recommend it enough. It's a great, fun series. A whole lot of crazy stuff that happens in there. So
is that Netflix?
Yeah, Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix.
Absolutely. No, but I have Hulu as well. I mean, I've watched every Brooklyn Nine-Nine that there is. I would recommend that too if you have Hulu. But
that's a good one.
If we're just talking Netflix, that's probably a good one right there for you. Somebody, by the way, just said they've been binge watching all of our shows, and I can't say that I appreciate you enough. So thank you for doing that. We do appreciate you guys popping in, checking out all of the content. Hopefully, again, the interviews are the bigger ones. I think that you guys might enjoy more, getting some insights from the other folks. The 3 Dougs was a great one. We just had Brody Brazil on. Prior to him, we had Scott Hannon. We're looking at getting some more interviews as this whole shelter in place thing is still a thing. So hopefully we can get some more people to pop in and make this just that much more interesting for you guys.
It's a good question. Is who would you want us to interview on here? Non-players, because it's really hard to get players on here.
Who would they want us?
Right.
Okay, I thought you were asking me.
Ask our audience is who would you like us to interview?
Right.
Who we haven't already interviewed. How about that?
No, yeah, not a player, just because it'd be really hard to get a player. We're not Brody Brazil status. We had Brody on, but we're not him. So it's a little difficult to get people whose phone numbers you don't know.
Yeah, Zach just asked if we're doing any future interviews. We're getting some in the pipeline. We don't have anything scheduled right away, but
yeah,
we're always looking. We're always trying to get some people on and always asking. And we're very fortunate that a lot of people have said yes.
I'm hoping I can kind of go rogue and interview Aaron one of these days, because I think it'd be a really interesting interview.
It'd be a very boring interview.
Just have to hide the turtle wax so the shine doesn't bother you guys.
Right.
SJ Sharkey. I've been wanting to get SJ Sharkey on this show since before we even conceived the show.
Just a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be so much fun. But then the podcast, what do you do for the podcast, right? You just have like blank spots. Pierre LeBrun would be great. We did meet Pierre LeBrun, I believe, at what was it, during All-Star weekend.
Yeah.
Cool dude. And we had said Shark Puck would be great. No, we had said reach out to him on Twitter and just kind of answered some questions, some poll that he was doing. He's responded back with, hey guys. So obviously the picture we sent him probably jogged his memory just a little bit, but it'd be cool to get Pierre on there. I think Pierre, he's so insightful and he's so knowledgeable. I would have to turn it over to Aaron because I don't know that I'd be able to handle that interview, to be honest.
I mean, it'd be great to get him, but that's a grand slam right there. I don't think that would be possible.
Would you ever go live with a fan?
We talked about doing, before the pandemic, we had the works to do a live show off-site where we can have an audience because our set is too small. We can't fit people in it. So we were talking about doing at a place in downtown that was working with us to host us. The problem is if we do a live with a fan, I mean, during the pandemic, it's hard because you have to really watch what you say in terms of cussing, and it's hard for people who haven't done it before.
Just watch our Twitch streams. It's very hard not to cuss.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of a holdback for us of not bringing any fans on just because, and doing a live at least. Doing a recorded show is different.
Yeah, so the retired players, Joel Ward, actually, we were hoping maybe to reach out, but who knows? And then with John Scott, he's got his own podcast, so that would be interesting if he would even consider.
Right.
I don't know.
What we have in our favor right now is a lot of these guys are bored out of their minds, have a lot of time on their hands. And so they're just like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Or in Scott Hannon's case, they have to get their wife to come in and install Chrome on his computer. To do that.
You're calling them out.
Fun fact.
Yeah. Well, if they watched the episode, which I'm sure all of you did, then you know that already. But
right.
All right. So any other comments? We had a lot of people telling us where they're watching us from. And thank you guys for all tuning in. We do appreciate it, especially during this time. We know the production value is a lot lower than what you're used to, especially if you've gone back recently and watched all those other episodes that we've done. But we appreciate you guys popping in, saying what's up, and giving us comments, questions, and whatnot. So do we have any more of those? I just want to make sure we get to as many as we can before we
Left-Handed Lion said, he's in San Jose, but not a TV show, but he's playing Detroit Become Human. Did you ever play that game?
No.
I've heard of it. I never played it, but there you go. It's an interactive show that has nearly 100 endings to it.
Whoa.
So I think it's like an RPG, I think.
Nice.
It's in the future, takes place in Detroit, and it has to do with robots becoming human, like AI kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, I'm actually, I know you're playing other things right now, but I'm mostly playing NHL 20 with a couple of the guys that are still around. Most of the folks that were in the club have kind of slowed down or stopped playing more altogether. But I actually have some roster spots available if you want to play with any of us. Well, Aaron, not so much, but at least with me. And now and then on NHL 20, feel free to search us, the Fin Factor, TFF as the abbreviation, and I'm sure there's some open roster spots, so feel free to pop on. The only thing I ask is you just play. Right now we're in Division 2, if you can believe that, mostly thanks to Nick and his crew. Yeah, they're helping us out big time. They're doing really, really well. So if you guys want to play and you're hopefully pretty decent, but if you're not, no big deal. I'm just looking for bags, so feel free to check us out.
Zinksy just said, "You guys still playing Sholl?" It's been a while. I haven't played with you guys. Just asking.
No, Zinksy's he's Div 1. He's on another level. This guy is he's too good for us, so he doesn't want to show up. I have to pay him $10 million, $11 million for a season, is what he said. So and I'm messing with him. No, Zinksy is phenomenal, guys. Zinksy, again, go ahead and put your Twitch account in the comments there. If you guys are fans of virtual hockey, feel free to check him out. He's got some really fun videos and whatnot. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a virtual game today. The San Jose Sharks alumni versus the Minnesota Wild, or was it Minnesota North Stars? Yeah, Minnesota North Stars alumni, and they had Dan Rusanowski doing the call. It was amazing. So it was great to hear his voice again. Obviously not real hockey, but closest thing you can get to it. It was cool hearing him talk about Mike Ricci and Jamie Baker and Nabokov in net and everything. So really cool. I'm glad these guys are kind of having a lot of fun with everything that's going on right now, and being able to reach out to, like guys like Dan. He's out there. This is his job. He's a professional, and he's doing it in a virtual sense. It's really phenomenal stuff. So keep an eye out for that. And the San Jose Sharks Twitter account, I'm sure they constantly will post and let people know when they're doing that. It looks like it's a lot of fun. I sat and watched a period or two, so it was good stuff.
Did you see some of the comments about interviews?
I saw Mike Ricci just now.
Say Owen Nolan, Doug Wilson Jr., Dan Boyle, Mike Ricci, Douglas Murray. We actually interviewed Douglas Murray. You can go back and look on our interview page, and you'll find it. Interview SAP employees and ushers and ask them how the work experience is at the tank for that's an interesting one. I actually have one of my neighbors who literally lives 2 houses down from me. Blue coat, and he works like practically every single event, not just Sharks, but concerts and everything. Mm-hmm. He's retired, and so it's just kind of like his fun, I'm gonna say hobby more than a job, really. But it's cool because he has a lot of stories, because he's seen a lot of bands and a lot of behind the scenes stuff with both, Shark stuff and bands and stuff. So that'd be an interesting one.
Actually, there's something Anthony Sanchez just put here. SAP Center really needs to upgrade their food selection. What's funny is we did an episode on some of the upgraded food selections that they've had as of this past season, I believe it even was. And I think a lot of those were more for like the suites and for that level of experience. But on the normal concourse areas, it sounds like they were going to be doing some more refreshing of the food selections that were available there. We didn't get too deep into what those might be and if they were actually doing them or when they were going to do them. Obviously, it's too late for that now, but it sounds like that's something that they're aware of. And I know that they had said that they were going to start kind of revamping some of the concourse level food selections, not just club and suite. So be looking for some changes in that arena, if you will.
They did. I think there's a section. There's like 1 or 2 spots that I feel like they rotate every, I don't know, quarter almost, right? Like they change out the restaurant. And one of those was the Mike Mina, wasn't it? The food that we tasted. Was it Mike Mina or was it, I can't remember who it was, the chef. He was one of those places that got rotated, and it was so popular that they brought him back as a permanent thing. So he had both a booth, and he also was doing food for he was on the concourse, but he was also doing different food for the suites.
Okay.
So he was doing both.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they did kind of upgrade their food selection this year compared to last year.
Nice.
They were actually going to be doing more, and it's obviously they're going to have more stuff during the playoffs, but they weren't going to make it. So that kind of got nixed. But I feel like the food definitely got better. Definitely in the last season and 2 seasons, it's gotten way better than what it used to be.
Nice. All right, I think we have time for one more comment. You got a good one down there for us?
Any chance we get Holtby?
Yes. There's a chance.
There's always a chance, right? He's a UFA. So he's going to be probably the top paid goalie on the UFA market.
Here's what it is. Okay, here's what it is. If they offer a compliance buyout and they unload Jones, yes, there's a chance we get Holtby. Beyond that, I don't see us getting Holtby. That's my take.
So there was a question earlier about how a buyout works. So and what that would look like if Jones got bought out. So you said compliance buyout. Let's explain the difference here. A normal buyout, you can do 2 buyouts a year, I believe, right? Or they're not. Maybe there's not a cap on the number.
I think it's only 1, but it was 2 if they had that year where they did a compliance buyout. So I could be wrong on that.
Compliance buyout that 1 year, right? The first time we had it.
Okay.
So anyway, a regular buyout, let's say the guy has 3 or 4 years left on his contract, and you can actually play with a website called capfriendly.com. It's a very good website. It has everyone's team, every player broken down salary wise, and you can actually play with it. And there's GM tools where you can buy out players, and it'll show you exactly what it'll look like. Now, if you buy out Martin Jones this year without a compliance buyout, which I'll explain in a minute, it spreads his salary out the remaining years as a cap hit, and he's not on the team. So his let's say it's $5 million. I can't remember what it is. $5 million a year. The buyout would mean $3.5 to $4 million of it. It kind of goes up and down based on his structure of his contract every year. Is a cap hit on the Sharks, even though he's not on the team. So it'll benefit the Sharks. Will save $1 million a season, but it's not worth it. And you might as well have the player on the team. Now, a compliance buyout is every once in a while, and this might happen. They're talking about it this year. They might do it because the salary cap's going to go down. A compliance buyout means you're allowed to buy out a player and it won't hit your cap. So you can buy the player out and no effect on the caps for the coming years, for however many years are left on his salary. So if that is the case, and if there's going to be a compliance buyout, everyone is saying Martin Jones should be bought out. Now, another rule is if that player does get bought out, they can't just re-sign with the team for a cheaper contract. So you can't buy a player out, say, here's your $5 million for this year. You're done. You're a free agent. Now come back and sign for the minimum. It doesn't work that way because teams would do it. That's why they put that rule in.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So it's funny because the owners and GMs collectively come up with these rules, and then they collectively break the rules. So they have to come up with more rules to govern themselves. They're governing themselves.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
That's why there's a trade deadline, so that people can't add players like right before the playoffs start. That's why there's a salary cap, so that nobody can be too far above, right? So, and it's, honestly, it's led to a league that has a lot of parity in it, so I don't have any problem with it. But what about Bobrovsky?
I'm getting triggered. It's time to go. I'm getting triggered. Bobrovsky's numbers were eerily similar to Martin Jones, and his salary was almost twice as much.
I'm sorry. Every time I see that, I just think of what's his name from Sports Center or Bobrovsky. You heard Nash is making a comeback? Yeah, weren't we supposed to sign him? And he no. Remember that one? I think you were telling me we're going to sign Rick Nash.
If we can get him, if he was a third line guy, Matt, you wouldn't want Rick Nash over Marcus Sorensen?
Okay.
Third line guy with Thornton and Marlowe?
Sure.
Thornton, Marlowe, Nash. You have the best 2005 line ever.
Nice.
In 2020.
I like that. That's good stuff. Yeah, no, Bobrovsky, I think that's a dodged bullet right there. I don't think that if his numbers weren't that great where he went, then his numbers weren't going to be great with us. Defensively, we weren't all there, and it showed. Now, could Martin Jones play better? Could Aaron Dell have played better? Yeah, I think they could have, but I think the biggest problem for me was defense. And if you put any goalie back there, they were going to see something similar. Maybe better numbers, still losses. So I don't know. I think if the defense gets short up a little bit more, then hopefully it won't matter if you've got Bobrovsky or if you've got Jones or Holtby, for instance. If that shores up a little bit more, I think anybody you throw in that's going to do a better job. So, including Martin Jones.
That ESPN guy got the Bobrovsky thing from an SNL sketch.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, Bill Bransky. That's right.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
Good stuff. Okay, well, I think we've run our course, closing on hour 5. So once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We do appreciate you guys so much. It's been great being able to kind of get in front of a phone. I can't even say a camera. Get in front of a phone and being able to chat with you guys again. It's kind of like one little happy family, really. It's really great to see the kind of the same guys coming back. We get some new folks coming in. It's always good to see some new faces, some new names, I should say, because I can't actually see your face. But it's always great having the comments and the questions, getting our brains going. I know you can see through the skin. You can see Aaron's brain moving right through that scalp of his. So it's good to see the wheels turning. But again, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Anything you want to say last, Aaron?
Nope. Just stay safe and wash your hands.
Let's see if I can poke you in the ear. Yes, definitely wash your hands. Use lots of soap and make sure you're doing the whole method thing and everything else. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Paul.
And I'm Aaron.
And Super Producer Jason is back in the wings. Thank you, Super Producer Jason, for putting this on. He is the brains, the man behind the curtain, if you will. So, all that said, again, we will see you guys.
Maybe next week.
Maybe. Who knows? Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, check out our other content, especially interviews. You can interact with us directly through social media at The Fin Factor and on Instagram at Fin Factor. And don't forget to join our live streams on YouTube.
Visit our website at thefinfactor.com, where you'll find all of our episodes as videos or podcasts. You'll also find our exclusive merchandise to help support our show.